He wasn't just another name in the world of custom bikes. Jesse Rooke was something rarer. A force of style, rebellion, and innovation. In a sea of chrome and conformity, he didn't just build motorcycles, he sculpted identity. His bikes weren't about excess or ego. They were about vision, motion, movement. A kind of raw expression that dared you to redefine what a custom motorcycle could be. And then, on a quiet day in Phoenix, Arizona, he was gone. April 5, 2019. The headlines were brief. Motorcycle crash claims life of Jesse Rooke. The details sparse. No drugs, no other vehicles, no high-speed chase or dramatic moment. Just a man, a bike, and the kind of silence that crashes into a community like a thunderclap. To outsiders, it may have seemed like just another tragic accident. But for those in the custom motorcycle world, the loss was personal. Jesse Rooke wasn't just another builder, he was the guy who changed everything without asking permission. He came from motocross, not the traditional biker scene. He didn't care about playing by the rules or paying dues. He cared about the craft, about designing something no one had seen before. When word of his death spread, it didn't just break hearts, it broke the rhythm. Because Jesse was the guy who never looked like he was slowing down. He had more to build, more to ride, more to prove. And maybe that's what makes his death so haunting. There was no warning, no long illness, no foreshadowed tragedy. One moment, Jesse Rooke was in motion, living the only way he knew how. The next, he was a legend memorialized in hashtags, tribute posts, and faded decals on gas tanks across the country. The question that remains isn't just, how did he die? It's, how do you fill the void left by someone who redefined an entire craft? This is the story of Jesse Rooke. Not just the builder, but the mystery, the myth, and the man behind one of custom motorcycling's most unforgettable legacies. Before he became the name whispered reverently at custom bike shows, Jesse Rooke was a kid chasing speed, not through back alleys or drag strips, but on motocross tracks, leaping dirt, chewing dust, and pushing limits. That's where he found his edge, and that's where his story begins. Unlike the old-school legends who cut their teeth in biker clubs and greasy garages, Jesse came at custom building sideways. No lineage, no mentor, no decades apprenticing under established names. Just raw talent, raw instinct, and the boldness to ask, what if? In the early 2000s, that what if took shape as Dina. A custom bike that didn't just turn heads, it spun the entire industry around. Dina was light, sporty, minimal. It tossed out the bulky, stretched look of typical choppers and replaced it with something clean, tight, and fast. It looked like a sport bike, until you realized it wasn't. And once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. That build launched Jesse into the stratosphere. Cycle World ran features, Discovery Channel came calling, and suddenly, this motocross rebel was a rising star in a world he was never supposed to fit into. But Jesse didn't just make bikes, he made statements. Every build came with attitude, intentional lines, aggressive stances, and craftsmanship that could stand beside the best in the business. And behind it all, there was that grin, the sideways smirk that said, "I'm not here to follow. I'm here to flip the whole thing upside down." He wasn't just a new builder, he was a new language, and the industry had to learn fast. What Jesse lacked in tradition, he more than made up for in vision. And that vision changed everything. Fame didn't polish Jesse Rooke. It made him sharper. As the spotlight grew, Jesse didn't soften his edges. He sharpened them. While some builders played the game, pleasing sponsors, catering to trends, streamlining their style for marketability, Jesse did the opposite. He doubled down on his instincts. He refused to dilute the designs that got him noticed in the first place. His shop, Rook Originals, didn't feel like a brand machine. It felt like a design lab, a place where each bike was a prototype of possibility, where no two builds looked the same, and every curve had a purpose. His creations challenged what a custom could be. One bike might echo Formula One engineering, another might draw from cafe racers, flat track, or desert race machines. To the industry's traditionalists, Jesse was a wild card. Some loved him, some didn't get him at all, but no one could ignore him. He was notorious for working alone or with a tight circle of collaborators, people who could handle the pace and the perfectionism. Jesse wasn't just building bikes, he was building ideas, and not everyone could keep up. But with that defiance came pressure. Sponsorships brought expectations, media demanded deadlines, and the fan base, hungry for the next Rook masterpiece, never let up. There were whispers that Jesse didn't sleep much, that he'd sometimes lock into a design and disappear from the world until it was done, that he never stopped moving. Still, he didn't break. He didn't bend. He just kept pushing, because that's what Jesse did. He chased the edge. And the edge, when you live on it, doesn't always give second chances. April 5th, 2019. A quiet Friday in Phoenix, Arizona. Jesse Rooke was riding a KTM motorcycle, fast, light, aggressive, just like the bikes he built. No big convoy, no film crew, just a man and a machine. Witnesses said he was alone. The weather was clear. The road was open. But then, something happened. Jesse lost control. He was thrown from the bike. And in that single brutal moment, Rook, the rebel builder, the design visionary, the man who had redefined an entire subculture, was gone. No other vehicles, no reported drugs or alcohol, no mechanical failure ever confirmed. The police report was sterile, clinical, loss of control, fatal injury. Just like that. He was 45. To fans, it didn't compute. How could a rider this skilled, this seasoned, be taken out on a regular street? In daylight? It wasn't just tragic, it was confusing. The questions came fast, and they never really stopped. Was it a split-second lapse? A mechanical fluke? A moment of distraction? Or something deeper? Burnout, exhaustion, the weight of always being on? His death stunned the motorcycle world. Instagram flooded with tributes. Shops posted photos of bikes they'd built because Jesse showed them how. Legends like Roland Sands and Carey Hart posted with shaking hands and heavy hearts. The man who'd made his mark by moving fast, thinking faster, and never slowing down, was suddenly silent. No cameras, no crowd, just Jesse, riding alone, and then nothing. The news didn't just travel fast, it hit like a punch to the chest. Within hours of Jesse Rooke's death, social media lit up, not with headlines, but heartbreak. Fellow builders, fans, even competitors flooded timelines with disbelief. Not Jesse. Not the guy who made everything look effortless. Not the builder who laughed in the face of convention. Across Instagram and Facebook, thousands of posts tagged number Rook Originals surfaced. Not just photos of his bikes, but stories, personal encounters, late-night garage visits, moments from rallies, races, and industry events where Jesse wasn't just present. He was the energy in the room. Roland Sands called him a brother, a fighter, a true original. Carey Hart posted a photo of one of Jesse's bikes with a single word beneath it: heartbroken. Chip Foose mentioned him in interviews as a genuine innovator. The emotion was raw, and for once, the motorcycle world didn't argue. It united. In Phoenix, riders organized a memorial cruise in his honor. No big sponsors, no corporate banners, just 100 bikes riding in silence, engines echoing through desert air as a tribute to the man who redefined the build and the ride. It wasn't just the loss of a person, it was the loss of a pulse. Jesse Rooke represented something few dared to be anymore: uncompromised. And when that kind of voice goes silent, the world doesn't just mourn, it feels incomplete. In the days following Jesse Rooke's death, a strange thing happened. The story stopped. No follow-up, no deeper investigation, no autopsy released to the public. Just silence. Official reports stated that Jesse lost control of his KTM motorcycle, but they didn't say why. There was no high-speed pursuit, no signs of mechanical failure noted, no mention of health issues, no toxicology drama. He wasn't on a canyon run or a track. He was riding on Bell Road in Phoenix, a road he likely knew well. For a builder whose life revolved around mechanical precision, that lack of clarity didn't sit right with many fans. Forums lit up with speculation. Was it a freak accident? Did something snap on the bike? Was it fatigue, distraction, fate? Those close to him offered no details, only grief. And maybe that's the point. Maybe there were no answers. Maybe the man who spent 2 decades pushing limits simply met the one he couldn't see coming. But even years later, the question lingers. How could someone that skilled, that controlled, that connected to the road, just vanish like that? No foul play, no drama, just one rider, one ride, and a world left with an empty lane. If there's one thing Jesse Rooke built better than bikes, it was influence. In the years since his passing, Rooke's fingerprints are still all over the custom motorcycle world. You can see it in the hybrid builds at Born Free and Mama Tried. In the new generation of builders blending cafe, tracker, and chopper design without caring who gets offended. In the new wave of custom work that doesn't chase chrome, it chases character. Rook Originals may have closed its doors, but the DNA is everywhere. Shops continue to credit him as the guy who gave them permission to try something weird, who proved that you didn't need to follow the blueprint, who reminded everyone that a bike wasn't just a vehicle, it was a canvas. His bikes still appear at shows and auctions, and whenever they do, they stop people cold. Not because they're flashy, but because they're Rook, raw, iconic, unmistakable. Builders today still study his lines, still post his older builds with captions like "goals" or "this was the one," still mimic the geometry he made famous without even knowing it. Jesse didn't build for the moment. He built for the movement. And even though the man is gone, the movement still rides. Jesse Rooke's bikes didn't look like anyone else's, because they weren't like anyone else's. Where most builders leaned into tradition, Jesse twisted the formula. Where others chromed everything, he simplified. Where many followed genre lines, cafe racer, bobber, tracker, chopper, he merged them like brushstrokes. His bikes weren't built to fit a category. They created new ones. Take the iconic Dina. At first glance, it looked like a chopper, but step closer and you saw motocross DNA in the stance. Lightweight tubing where you'd expect bulk, angles borrowed from street bikes, and a center of gravity designed for handling, not just flexing at shows. It was a thunderbolt in a scene that had grown stale. Then came Sosa, the Crow, and the experimental KTM Bobber, a fusion of Austrian performance and West Coast soul. Every build had the Rook signature: minimalist, aggressive, radical without being gaudy. But the true genius? He never repeated himself. No templates, no production runs. Each bike was a sculpture, and each one lived in a space between worlds, racer and cruiser, industrial and artistic, rebellious and refined. Today, you can see echoes of Rook's influence in bikes from revival cycles, Roland Sands' design, and even some of the concept builds coming out of big OEMs like Yamaha and BMW. Designers who never met Jesse still reference his geometry, still draw his lines, because what Jesse created wasn't just style, it was freedom. The freedom to ignore rules and build something that didn't ask for permission. Jesse Rooke didn't follow trends. He outpaced them by years. Behind the roaring bikes, the shows, the cameras, and the industry buzz, Jesse Rooke was a father, a partner, and a quiet giant in his personal circle. He wasn't always loud. He wasn't always in the spotlight. But those who knew him closely describe a man who felt deeply, a man who carried the weight of his vision, and who poured his soul into every build, not for fame, but because it was how he spoke to the world. His daughter was young when he passed, but those close to the family say Jesse lit up when he talked about her. He wanted to raise her with the same sense of boldness he brought to his bikes. He wanted her to know that it was okay to be different, necessary even. The shop, Rook Originals, closed quietly after his death. No grand rebrand, no tribute relaunch. It was left like a sealed time capsule, unfinished sketches, tools resting where they last were, frames mid-weld, as if he had just stepped out for a moment. His friends didn't turn his name into merchandise. They didn't cash in on his legacy. Instead, they honored it the Rook way, by building, by teaching, by pushing limits in his name. There are plans, rumors even, of a memorial exhibit, of preserving his remaining bikes in a space where young builders can see what risk looks like, what vision, unfiltered by profit, truly is. Because Jesse didn't just leave behind bikes. He left behind a blueprint for creative courage. There are builders, there are visionaries, and then there are those rare, untamed souls who blur the line between the two. Jesse Rooke was one of them. He didn't need a flashy persona or a camera crew to be legendary. He needed metal, he needed motion, and he needed the space to ask what if, over and over again, until the answer became a motorcycle you couldn't forget. He didn't die in glory. He didn't go out on a stage. He went out riding, alone, in the middle of the day, on a road like any other. And somehow, that made the loss harder to accept. It felt too ordinary for someone so extraordinary. But maybe that's the lesson. Maybe Jesse Rooke wasn't here to be remembered only for how he died. Maybe he's here to be remembered for the way he lived. Loud in vision, quiet in ego, fearless in craft, relentless in pushing boundaries. A rebel with a welder's torch and an artist's eye. His story ends with a crash, but his legacy? That rides on. Every time someone dares to build a bike that doesn't make sense, Rook is there. Every time a young builder says, "What if I try it my way?" Rook is alive. And every time a garage door opens and the welding mask goes down, that spirit returns. Ride in peace, Jesse. You were gone too soon, but the road remembers.